Imagine a heist so daring, so meticulously planned, it shakes a nation to its core. This is the story of the Great Train Robbery. Whisk back in time to the early hours of August 8, 1963. A quiet night in Britain is about to be shattered by an audacious crime that will go down in history. The Great Train Robbery, a heist like no other, was about to unfold. A Royal Mail train traveling from Glasgow to London was carrying a fortune. Due to a bank holiday weekend, the train was loaded with large amounts of money. It was a tempting target for those bold enough and clever enough to take it. At the heart of this audacious plot was one man, Bruce Reynolds, and his gang of 15. A motley crew of thieves and misfits, each with a unique set of skills, all united by one common goal: to pull off the heist of the century. Using inside information, the gang tampered with signals to stop the train. They overpowered the crew, moved the train to a bridge, and stole the money from the high-value packages carriage. It was a crime executed with military precision and ruthless efficiency. The stolen money was never fully recovered. For a while, the robbers hid at Leatherslade farm, but eventually their luck ran out. Incriminating evidence led to their arrest, and the ringleaders were sentenced to 30 years in prison. But their story, the story of the Great Train Robbery, had already etched itself onto the pages of history. The Great Train Robbery was not just a crime, it was a symbol of audacity, of meticulous planning, and of ruthless execution. It shook a nation to its core, and left an indelible mark on the annals of British crime history. Now let's delve into the details of this audacious crime. Every great heist starts with a plan, and the Great Train Robbery was no exception. In the heat of the summer of 1963, a gang of 15 men, led by the audacious Bruce Reynolds, began to craft a scheme as daring as it was meticulous. Their target? A Royal Mail train traveling from Glasgow to London, a train that, due to a bank holiday weekend, was transporting an unusually large amount of money. The plan was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a result of careful calculation and inside information. The gang knew when and where to strike, and they left nothing to chance. They decided to tamper with the signals to halt the train at a particular bridge, a location carefully chosen for its seclusion. This was not a scheme concocted overnight. It was the result of countless hours of plotting, rehearsing, and refining, a plan that was as meticulous as it was bold. But how did they get such precise information? It was thanks to a man on the inside, a man who had access to the Royal Mail's operations and schedules. His contribution was invaluable to the gang's planning phase, providing them with the knowledge they needed to turn their audacious dream into a reality. The gang was not just planning to rob the train, but to overpower the crew as well. They intended to move the train to the bridge, away from prying eyes and potential interference, before making their move on the high-value packages carriage. The plan was audacious, risky, but if executed correctly, it promised a payoff of £2.61 million, a fortune that would set them for life. With the plan meticulously laid out, the gang was ready. They knew the risks, they knew the rewards, and they knew that there was no turning back. This was not just a plan, it was a declaration of audacity, a testament to their daring, a challenge to the very notion of impossibility. With the plan in place, it was time for the execution. On August 8, 1963, the plan was set in motion. With a daring scheme and nerves of steel, a gang of 15 led by Bruce Reynolds embarked on what would become one of the most audacious heists in history: the Great Train Robbery. The first step of their plan was to tamper with the signals. With calculated precision, they manipulated the train's path, bringing it to a halt. The audacity of their plan was matched only by their ruthless execution. They attacked the crew, overpowering them with a sheer force of numbers and determination. But the audaciousness of their plan didn't stop there. No, they moved the entire train to a bridge, a feat that was nothing short of astonishing. It was there, under the cover of darkness and the silent watch of the towering structure, that they made their move on the high-value packages carriage. The high-value packages carriage, the treasure chest of their dreams, carrying large amounts of money due to a bank holiday weekend. They broke into it, their hearts pounding with anticipation, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The sight that met their eyes was beyond their wildest dreams. A whopping sum of £2.61 million, a fortune beyond compare. Their plan had worked. They had the money. Now it was time to escape. And escape they did. They vanished into the night, leaving behind a scene of chaos and disbelief. Their audacity, their ruthlessness, their meticulous planning, it had all paid off. But as the sun rose on the following day, the magnitude of their crime began to sink in. They had just pulled off the great train robbery, and now, they had to deal with the aftermath. With the money in their hands, it was time for the robbers to lay low. And lay low they did, retreating to the safety of Leatherslade farm, ready to bask in the glory of their audacious heist. The gang had a hideout ready, Leatherslade farm. This was no ordinary farm, but a sanctuary meticulously chosen to shelter the 15 men and their colossal loot. Tucked away in the heart of Buckinghamshire, it was far from prying eyes, offering the perfect hideaway after their audacious heist. The gang had thought of everything, or so they believed. They had food and amenities to last them for weeks. Their plan was to lay low, let the heat die down, and then disappear without a trace. The farm became their fortress, their haven. Here they reveled in their triumph, counting the banknotes that symbolized their audacious crime. The air was heavy with a sense of achievement and the thrill of having pulled off what they thought was the perfect crime. But amidst the celebration, paranoia started to creep in. The gang began to feel the weight of their actions. The realization that they were now some of the most wanted men in the country started to sink in. And it wasn't just the fear of being captured. The farm, once a symbol of their triumph, started to feel like a prison. The walls seemed to close in on them, the seclusion that once promised safety now echoing with the ominous threat of discovery. Somewhere along the line they made mistakes. They left behind evidence, traces of their presence. Fingerprints on a Monopoly game, food wrappers, and the biggest blunder. They had not burnt down the farm as originally planned. These oversights would eventually lead to their downfall. The police, relentless in their pursuit, were closing in. It was only a matter of time before the hideout was discovered, the gang arrested, and the dream of the perfect crime shattered. But as we all know, there's no such thing as a perfect crime. In the end, justice always finds a way. As the dust settled following the audacious heist, the gang found themselves in the crosshairs of a relentless investigation. Their hideout, Leatherslade farm, had been compromised. The robbers had left behind a trail of incriminating evidence, a fatal mistake that eventually led to their downfall. The authorities, meticulously piecing together the clues, followed the trail straight to the farm. What they found was a treasure trove of evidence. From fingerprints to items purchased for the heist, the gang had left behind a roadmap that led the authorities right to their doorstep. The net was closing in. One by one, the members of the gang were rounded up. Their audacious plan, once seeming so foolproof, had unraveled. The leader, Bruce Reynolds, along with the rest of the ringleaders, found themselves facing the full force of the law. The court was unsparing in its verdict. The ringleaders were sentenced to 30 years in prison, a stern message that such audacity would not go unpunished. Despite the successful apprehension of the gang, one mystery remained. The stolen money, a staggering £2.61 million, was never fully recovered. Some of it was discovered in the initial investigation, but the majority seemed to have vanished, adding another layer to the already complex tale of the great train robbery. Yet, even with the money still at large, justice had prevailed. The audacious heist, once seen as a triumph of criminal ingenuity, was now a stark reminder of the inevitability of justice. The gang, who once held the nation in their thrall, were now behind bars, their dreams of a lavish life funded by their audacious heist dashed. And so, the story of the great train robbery comes to an end, leaving behind a legacy of audacity, meticulous planning, and the inevitability of justice.